So make sure you subscribe so you will, hello? Again? Hi everybody, welcome back to my craft room. For the last couple of months I've been posting videos about how I have been making my Aloy to Nox Dragoon cosplay. I showed you how I made the raffia armor, how I made the wraps, the machine plate armor, and the tattoo shirt. And I'm super excited that today I'm gonna show you how I am putting all of those elements together into the cosplay. There's gonna be a lot of sewing, there's gonna be a lot of gluing, and some painting. But I hope that you will be able to kind of get some ideas for attachments on your own cosplay, because that is a feat of engineering all on its own. My favorite part of watching anybody's cosplay build YouTube videos is like, just how they get it all together. What are they doing? How are they holding that thing on their body? So we'll just jump right into it and make sure you stay tuned to the end of the video for the reveal shots. Let's go. This is bringing it way back to the beginning of this project because the first thing I made was some pants. The pants were very simple. They're essentially pajama pants, but instead of an elastic waistband, I just gathered the pants at the waist, added a zipper to the side seam, and made them shorter. The pants are made out of brown polyester linen and they're pretty comfortable. Normally I would add a pocket in this situation, but I can't even access the pocket because of all the stuff that's going on top of them later. I ended up making them a little bit shorter, but I didn't film that part. If there's one thing Aloy loves, it's a complicated skirt. I started by making a really simple waistband out of the same brown linen as the pants and some interfacing. To close the waistband, I used 2 small parachute buckles that sit at the side. Fast forwarding a little bit, I made the raffia armor piece, and you can check out my video on how I made all of those on my channel. Now to attach it to the waistband. I took my waistband and cut out a craft foam rectangle and used some clips to attach it to the waistband before I sewed it down. You can totally sew through craft foam on your sewing machine, just go slow. Then I went out to my garage and put contact cement on the raffia skirt panel and my little craft foam rectangle. I gave that about 5 minutes to dry and then stuck the 2 pieces together. And now they're permanently attached. I took my skirt base back inside and made 2 fabric panels to cover the back of the skirt armor piece because even though people probably won't see it, it's kind of ugly and I wanted to cover it up. Then I just had to pattern out the rest of the skirt panels. I started with the front one just as kind of a practice, and a lot of this was just looking at reference pictures I took in the game and eyeballing it. I laid out my armor piece next to what I was patterning to try and get the scale right. Next, I cut my fabric out on some red micro suede. I also happened to be babysitting our friend's kitten at the time, and if you can believe it, he was not particularly helpful. Really cute though. Then I sewed up the side seams, trimmed the seam allowance so I could lay it flat, flipped the panel inside out, and ironed it. Howdy, I'm on the floor. When I tell you I have been thinking about this skirt and kind of dreading it since before I even started this project, like something about it is just breaking my brain. There's so many layers, trying to get it like folded over the top, but also everything attached. So you kind of just have to like start. But it has been going well. I have a few panels done. You saw me working with this red suede, and this is great because I already had this in my stash from a previous Aloy cosplay. And then I also have this pale green suede that I originally bought for an Artemis cosplay, but I didn't like how it draped when I made the dress. And then for the yellow, I'm going to use the same yellow linen that I'm using for the belt on the kind of overskirt. It's kind of tedious doing all the individual panels and making sure that it's symmetrical and also fits on the waistband, but you know, the things we do for cosplay. So I just kept making panels. Using my dress form, I kind of pre-arranged them and that was super helpful. There's 2 layers to this skirt. I sewed my first layer of panels down to the skirt. All right, I'm back. Time to make the top panels of the skirt. So I have these 2 red ones. They are going to go right here. I made these the same ways I made the other panels. You didn't miss much. Cut them out, pinked them, serged to the top, turned them inside out, ironed them. Really great. In the character art, these kind of loop over the top. And I would like these loops to stay pretty loose. So on this side, I can just pull them over and still unbuckle. Looking in the mirror, just tucking that in. There we go. And then I can fill in the rest of the skirt with even more panels. This way I'm gonna have a nice full skirt. I'm not gonna have any gaps. And I think that's gonna end up looking really nice. I'm gonna hand stitch these down because I don't want like a visible top stitch. These have a visible top stitch and that's fine because they're the underneath layer. Very nice. It's almost a little Star Warsy. Put this into place. And yeah, as you can see, I can still pull this to the side to unclip so I can get in and out of the skirt with relative ease. And that's just what I ended up doing. First, I just arranged all of my skirt panels so they fit on the waistband and overlapped the way I wanted them to. All of the top folded over panels of the skirt got hand sewn down to the waistband. I have here a mannequin with my little foam armor on it. This is one of the first things I made for Aloy, and I just haven't touched it since because I was really torn on how I wanted to create the texture that is on her armor top. At first I thought I would just cut up chunks of craft foam and then Dremel them into shape. But then my husband pointed out to me that that was going to take forever, which, fair. Also, I did all the Dremeling today and my hands are still kind of numb, so that would have been bad. And then I was thinking, well, I have monster clay, so what if I just sculpted a blank of all the little pebbly shapes and then I made a mold and casted it in silicone and then I just used foam clay and like laid it in and let it dry and peeled it out and then applied it. And I was like, or I could just skip that part and just use foam clay. So that's what we're gonna do. This is a brand new bucket, which is usually when it's the least terrible to work with. And I'm gonna roll it up and make a little snaky. Here's a little snake making tip. You roll it out and then use your fingers. My mom decorated cakes for a very long time in my childhood, so this is how she would roll out the fondant for the cakes, because it was the early 2000s and people still wanted fondant on their cakes. All right, got a nice little skinny snake. Now I'm gonna take my scissors and just start cutting up some chunks. Thankfully, the chunks are all different sizes, so I don't have to worry about all of these being even or even close to even. I just gotta chunk them up. Couple long boys, couple shorties. I posted what these look like on Instagram and everybody said they looked like marshmallows. And yeah, they're just little baby hot chocolate marshmallows. I just took all of those little mini clay marshmallows and stuck them directly to the armor top in rows. This did take a while to roll out the snakes and cut them up, but the foam clay stuck to the breastplate really well. It's a few hours later and I have the back piece of my armor covered. It is heavy. I'm hoping it lightens up significantly as it dries. Once everything was thoroughly marshmallowed, I took it out to the garage to paint. I put a trash bag over one of my mannequins so I had a good spot to paint it on, and I covered everything with drop cloths. I started by giving it 2 coats of Plastidip to prime it, then I took some teal spray paint and applied it for my base color. The color is perfect. I love how it came out. But my work was not done. I took a chip brush, the MVP of this cosplay, and some lime green acrylic paint and dry brushed it onto the whole breastplate. I also used some red acrylic paint for more of the armor details. The last painting step was some brown oil paint that I applied in the cracks and wiped away with an old cut-up t-shirt. Then I just had to give it a clear coat and add the details. I hot glued on a raffia underlayer and trimmed away the excess. Then I added some cotton macrame cord. I figured out I'm pretty sensitive to the jute rope I used on a lot of this project, so I figure limiting my direct contact to it is probably wise. This got put around all the edges of the breastplate. I'm so thrilled with how this armor top is going so far. Some of the spray paint rubbed off onto my face when I was trying it on, and now I look like I ate the paint. I promise I was not eating the paint. But there is a major flaw, and it's that it wants to do that in the front and the back. So I need to kind of bring it together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this swimming suit elastic and sew it in between two little pieces of foam. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to contact cement it to the inside of the armor. So I have this little invisible strap that is going to keep this tight on my body. And it worked out really well, even though I neglected to film it. But here's what those pieces looked like with the clear elastic. Next, I needed to make Aloy's pauldron, so I started out with a Kamui cosplay pattern as a base and then cut it out on more 6mm EVA foam. I have the base of my shoulder pauldron. I just took it out to the garage to glue it and didn't film it because I think on this project I have filmed myself contact cementing things enough. I need to heat shape it, and once it's on the base of the armor itself, it'll stay a little more curved. But this is a great start. So Aloy has what I have been calling palm fronds that are on a shoulder pauldron and also coming out of the top of her helmet. I'm just gonna focus on the shoulder ones right now, and I was really stuck on what I wanted to use for this particular piece of the cosplay. I thought foam would be good because it's lightweight, but then I would have to cut out a lot of little pieces. I thought about using like Isolon foam, the really, really lightweight stuff, but I also wanted it to have kind of a leafy texture, and texturing all of those pieces probably would have been difficult. All that to say, I went to a crafting yard sale and they had a ton of these, just huge palm fronds. They already have a leaf texture. I got them for so cheap, so cheap. So I have 10 of these. I have 10 of these palm fronds, and it's so nice because, you know, they're all connected, but since it's just a crappy little fake plant, it all just peels off so nice and easy. So I'm just gonna be doing some satisfying peeling, and then we'll get to putting everything together. The peeling was truly a delight. I loved this part. I did snip off a few leaves that I left attached to the stem so they would stay nice and firm for any structured leaves I would need. And after I had a huge pile of leaves, I took them out to the garage and painstakingly arranged them on some painter's tape so the spray paint wouldn't blow them away. I cannot overstate how long this took. Then I sprayed the leaves with some red on the top that gradiated to a teal. I half held down the nozzle of the red paint to splatter on the paint a little bit, and I really loved the effect. Then, back inside, I gave my foam base a little shaping and sizing and hot glued it to the armor top. Then it was time to glue on all the leaves. I just used hot glue for this. I glued them to the top of the pauldron and some poking out of the bottom as well for full coverage. Any of the leaves I left the stem in were saved for the very top layer since they give everything a nice structure. Then it was time to add the armor pieces, starting with the shoulder spike. Then I added some macrame cord details to the back armor pieces and carefully glued them on. And then I glued on what I've been lovingly referring to as the front dino. Now I'm going to jump into the belt, which is essentially just a long tube of my yellow linen fabric. I threaded that through the belt loops and then hand sewed it to the parachute buckle that's on the overskirt piece. Then I sewed up some little belt tails and shoved them through my belt buckle. Next, I glued the fabric to the Worbla buckle. I hand sewed on a little purse magnet so I can easily pull the belt buckle aside to take the overskirt off. Also, can you guess what day of the year I filmed this clip? Look at that, so patriotic, wow. Then it was time to put all of the armor pieces together, which again, if you haven't seen any of my other Aloy videos, they're in a playlist and they'll show you how I made absolutely everything you're seeing here. I started by punching some holes in my raffia overskirt and threading the macrame rope through my machine plate armor and raffia armor. I glued some craft foam squares to the inside of the macrame cord to reinforce everything. I also wrapped my little grapple hook in cord and glued it to the overskirt. But the details on the overskirt don't end there, no, I need to add my quiver. I actually initially tried to use contact cement to attach the raffia and machine plate pieces together, but it melted my paint, so lesson learned, don't use contact cement on spray paint. So I used hot glue instead. Then all I needed to add was some rope details and some red hand-stitched cord. The top also got some hand stitching. I also added a D-ring to the quiver so I can attach it to the overskirt. I also made a climbing rope attachment with some of my jute rope and some super simple pouches out of some blue suede. None of these pouches are functional. You can see that little gold hook on the overskirt, that's where I hook the quiver to it. We're getting close, just a few pieces left. We'll start with the arm armor. I started by gluing on some more macrame cord, and then I glued the machine spikes to the bicep armor and to the bracer. The greaves were finished in a very similar fashion. I just glued the spikes on and then tied some cord on the back. The time has come for me to do what I have genuinely been the most frightened of doing this whole process, which is assembling all the headdress pieces. I'm really happy with how all of these came out as parts, so now it's just hoping that I can make them work together as a whole unit that is going to stay on my head. I have my armor pieces, I have my raffia pieces, I have all of my little spray painted leaf fronds to glue on. I am armed with some parachute clips, some elastic, a heat gun, Worbla scraps, and my hot glue. So let's see how it goes. By the way, I painted more leaves. The only difference is I kept all of these on their stems for structure and I mostly painted them red. I also sandwiched a wire between a few of the leaves so I could bend them into shape for the front of the headdress. And I just sandwiched them using some spray-on Gorilla Glue. To assemble, I started off by taking my helmet piece and hot gluing on the rills for the side of my face. I popped on my Aloy wig and used some shirring elastic to create the base level of attachments for the headdress. Then the scariest part was gluing up the raffia and machine face piece. I did need to trim down the raffia a little bit to make it fit, but honestly, I could not be more thrilled with how it came out. And finally, it was time to just add the leaves. I glued on the wired leaves for the front first, and even just these 7 or 8 leaves absolutely brought everything to life. I trimmed quite a few of my large leaves down into little ones so I could make my supply stretch as far as possible, because the last thing I wanted to do at this point was to go back into the garage and paint more leaves. I glued those along the edges, including the little face rills, and then I glued the large structured leaves on to hide all of the ugly craft foam. And since I made this to fit my face so well, that one piece of elastic actually holds everything on great. I did end up adding one more piece of elastic along the top of my head, kind of like a headband off camera, just to be safe. But it really is super stable, and that was the last step. Time for a reveal! want to shout out my friend Gleb, who took all of those videos and the thumbnail picture for this video. He's a super talented videographer and photographer, and he makes the most beautiful like travel and motorcycle content, and so I will have everything for him linked down below. If you're interested in the machine plate armor patterns that I used for this build, they are actually on my Patreon. It's the only thing on my Patreon. It's totally free. You don't need to be subscribed, but you can go check those out and download them. Also, if you think I'm done with Aloy, I'm not. So make sure you subscribe so you're notified when I upload the next video about how I made her Sun Scourge bow. Also, if you want more up-to-the-minute updates of what I'm working on, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck on all your own cosplays, and I will see you next time. Bye!